Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about using annotative dimensioning. This is a project that was created just a few weeks ago that that you've done as a project in the class. But I wanted to convert these dimensions into annotative dimensions to be used on a variable sized layout system. So here's the scenario. First things first, we have to convert the dimensions to annotative. They were originally created in a standard set for dimension styles. So we went up and went into annotative, went into modify, and changed the primary units to 2 decimal places. Went and did the fit, so it's text only. And if you have a dimension, it could kick the leader out, that kind of thing. Make sure it says annotative so the scale is controlled based on the viewport scaling, not on the actual scale of the dimensions. So I just changed those 2 items under the modify annotative and chose close. So now I can grip the dimension, and the key is properties. So if we go into the properties command, we can see that I've already converted it to annotative. You can also tell that the little annotative icon, which is the triangular scale icon, is located near it. But you can grip all the dimensions, and as long as it's a common dimension, now if I mix it, so if I go from a radius or a diameter with linear, this totally messes it up. So you got to stick with all linear dimensions and then change the dimension style to annotative. You need to do the same thing for the leaders, but you can only do these one at a time. So again, change them over to annotative. So now that these are all annotative dimensions, as you can tell, I've taken the time and made all that modification. I'm going to actually move this one here down a little bit, and that'll clean it up. All right, so these are all annotative dimensions now. So I did another layout 2, and so again, it doesn't. This particular component, I can do layouts and all the other components associated with it. The deal is, let's say I create a new layout, so I just do new layout, and there's layout 3. So layout 3 has got dimensions and so forth. I'm going to go ahead and shrink this. So I'm going to copy and paste. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy my selection, and I can do Control V and paste another one, Control V, paste another one, Control V, paste another one. Okay, so, and again, you know that these viewports are just like objects. So they can be aligned and controlled and manipulated just like a rectangular object shape. So that way everything lines up and it's happy. Let's see here, it's close. I want to use that as the edge, come across, bring this up, boom. And if I want to align these, I can do the same thing. I can grip this, highlight this, bring this straight up, and then it shrinks the size. So you can do the same thing and just make it so it's perfectly orientated with each one. So again, right now, this is just showing our standard dimensioning scaling, 1-to-1 or whatever it happened to be when we were working with it. And if we double click in, it tells us that it was 0.78 to 1. Well, that's not exactly what I was shooting for. Each one of these I wanted a different scale. So this one I want as 1-to-1. So we'll go up and choose 1-to-1. This one I wanted a different scale, and we'll make this one 1/2 scale. Uh-oh, but the dimensions went away. Don't freak out yet. Don't freak out. Third one, let's go ahead and make this one 2-to-1. Again, don't freak out. The scale is needing to be set. I got to go ahead and, since I hit the mouse, I got to reset that. So that's about 2-to-1. And this one's going to be 1/4 scale. Okay, so now we can see basically everything, but again, I want to make sure that it's at quarter scale. All right, so we've got all these different scales. I got dimensions in one, but no dimensions in any of the others. Well, here's the key. Okay, this one was set at full size. Well, the dimensions were created at full size, and so the dimensions are consistent. This is what you need to turn on to show annotative objects at current scale. So no matter what the viewport scale is, I can turn this on, and the viewports will now display the dimensions based on the current scale. Add scales to annotative objects when annotation scale changes. Okay, we can turn that on, and all that does is that controls the automatic scaling capability. So if I change the scale in this, then this changes that dimensional scale. But you can now see that the scaling is now based, the dimensional scaling is now based on the scale of the viewport, which is what we were looking for. If we want to turn off that scaling component, all right, now I'm going to go back in and we'll check 1 to 2 here. And what I'll do is I'll double click and I'll make this 1 to 8 instead. So we'll go 1 to 8. I just messed that up. Hang on. Double click in. Change this to 1 to 8. Boom. So now you got dimensions that are all jazzed up. They're gigantic. Why? Because the automatic scaling has been turned on. Well, you may need this or you may not need the automatic scaling component. That's what changes and makes this really bizarre looking, is this auto scaling. We turn off the auto scaling. Let's go back and set it at 1 to 2. And notice that the dimensions, and then if I go back and set it at 1 to 8, it shouldn't be all freaked out. Well, if I take it back, it is all freaked out. Maybe I need to switch those two. Maybe I was off on that. Okay, that's it. So turning off this first one maintains the current scale or changes the scale of the dimensions for that. Changing the automatic scaling now maintains the size of the dimensions consistently in the viewport. So again, changing each one of these, this is 1 to 4. Let's go ahead and do this. We'll go 1 to 2 here, and then we'll go back to 1 to 4. And you can see that the dimensions stay exactly the same height, and that's good and bad. So I'm showing you the two differences that you can see with that, okay, with that scaling component. And in this case, with a 2 to 1 setting, we're not able to see the scaling. I'll go back to 1 to 1 first, and then we'll go back to 2 to 1 and see if it updates, and it does. But notice that the size of the text is exactly the same now in each window. This option keeps it the same. This scales it based on the scale factor in the window. So those are the two settings that you can work with on annotative scale for your drawing environment. That's all I got. Have a good day.